Welcome to Backstory and Beyond. My name is John Daniel, and I'm humbled to be your host, but I'm thrilled to be here with a hero of mine. His name is Evan Shapiro. Did I get that right, sir?
You did from
Oh,
Philly,
come on now. And we got two brothers here from Philly. What part of Philly?
Northeast.
Okay. Northeast High School. I'm from North Philly.
Well,
And
my mom went to Northeast. My dad went to Central, and then I grew up in Cherry Hill. So
what year Central did he come out? What class?
he would have been 63, I think,
Okay,
64.
so he was there early. My brother came out with the class of 229, and my older brother was a teacher there at
Oh,
Central
wow.
High School, Jim and David. But man, look, thank you for spending some time here. We're both going to the IBC Conference 2025. I can't wait to see you there. It's been a long time since I've seen you,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this is exciting to get it kicked off and let them get a little piece of what you're about to do. So
Thanks.
this is important. Look, man, the concept of this show is real straightforward. It's helping people become their best. And you're a perfect example of that, of how hard you work. Your work ethic is like James Brown. In Hollywood, this man just puts the time in. There's an email and a newsletter that comes every day, okay? 6 o'clock in the morning, maybe sooner. And
Once a week. The newsletter comes once a week. LinkedIn is every day.
okay, man, look, all I can say is you're the hardest working man doing what we do. And
I
so
appreciate that.
I thank you, sir. And you're inspiring to me. So, look, this show is all about helping people be their best through looking at issues like calling. This is certainly your calling. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Purpose, service to other people. And if you will, how do I reach my peak human potential? I'm talking about Kobe Bryant. I'm talking about LeBron James. I'm talking about Gotham Chopra. How do I reach my peak potential? So, man, look, I appreciate the time. One of the things that I don't know if a lot of people have heard, and I want to hear, I've heard some, is your backstory. Where did you come from? You mentioned Philly, but what kind of things did you go through that led you to all the things you're doing now? I know you're a recovering executive from NBC, but I think the key here is, man, people need to hear and want to hear, what fertile ground you came from. Please take your time, sir.
Sure. I grew up in South Jersey, outside of Philly, and yeah, I had an interesting childhood. My dad was a not the greatest guy in the world, and that taught me early on to be pretty self-reliant. I came from pretty good stock in Northeast Philly. My grandfather never went to college, was an auto mechanic, ran a service station in Northeast Philly, where he became the kind of center of the community there. When he passed, I was fortunate enough to speak at his funeral, and I thought there would be, a handful of people there, and there was a line around the block of people he had
Wow.
helped but never spoke about.
Wow.
And that was a real educational experience for me. I went to college, I dropped out, I moved to New York, and really spent the rest of my career trying to honing my personal point of view and my personal perspective and keeping that at the center of who I am. I worked in nonprofit arts, nonprofit theater. Then I moved over and opened my own business, a marketing agency, an advertising agency, and PR agency, mostly in live entertainment. So I helped launch The Lion King on Broadway and Chicago on Broadway, a couple of other.
Woo!
Yeah. And then moved into television and really first in marketing, then in content and management. And all along the way, whether it was at IFC or Participant Media or NBC, I really tried to do two things. One, be true to myself, and be true to the audience. Listen to what the data was telling us because I've always thought that the data was the voice of the audience. And then when I got fired by Comcast on my 50th birthday, I went very much back to my own roots and decided to dedicate myself to creating content that spoke for the voice of the audience, for the voice of our community who works in the industry, and really speaking truth to power. And it was, pretty, I don't know, scary at first when you first hit publish. on a LinkedIn post that has a point of view, a real point of view, or a newsletter that has a real point of view. It's not just pablum. It's not just repeating the same tropes that you hear over and over again. Before you hit send, you wonder, are people going to hate this? Is anyone going to read it? And, not from day one, but shortly thereafter, as I started to put myself out there more and more, the feedback has been, very rewarding, and it seems to be, something that people need to hear. And now I run my own enterprise, small company, about 5 or 6 people. And we publish apparently what people most want to read about the industry itself. And we do so by looking at the data first, looking at what the audience is telling us, but then pulling no punches by being, I wrote a piece today on my newsletter, Media War and Peace, about surviving the Nepo baby apocalypse. And, then right after that, Paramount, full of Nepo babies and general managers of fucking up, announced that they were laying off 3,000 people. And if you look at the history of Paramount over the last decade and just what's been wasted there, what Sherry Redstone has just utterly destroyed by just lack of imagination.
Right.
And you see what's happening now, and again, the same executives who fail up, getting hired over and over again to do the same things over and over again,
Right.
expecting new outcomes, which is, as Einstein said, the definition of insanity.
Right.
So we tend to be a little ahead of the curve, and now what I'm hoping is that we're helping shape the curve. We're helping push people to new destinations as opposed to just telling them what the weather is.
Everything just brings a resonance to me. Number one, truth to power, being true to yourself. Okay, you dropped out of college and said, I'm going to make things happen like the Lion King. I'm going to do things that hugely impact the well being of people. Again, man, it's like this is what people need to hear. Clearly, this is your calling. Clearly, you're serving people. And I think in all of this, you underscored imagination. I don't care how many degrees you have, how many titles you have. Without imagination, one really can't be creative. And one probably doesn't take the time to look at what people need. You are. Tell me a little bit more. I mean, we know you're the cartographer of the media universe. Everybody, if they haven't, something's wrong with them, has seen your artwork that brings, it's data driven. And that's what you've been emphasizing here. When you drive with the data, you can make better decisions. You just have to be able to adjust to the changes that occur. I mean, every time I've seen you adjust, the map that you have, you're looking at what happened on a daily basis. So you're fight ready. You're a Muhammad Ali of media, okay? You can bob, and your confidence is there. So look, bro, I am not here to try to push your ego. I'm telling you from the head, heart,
You're
head.
doing a good job of it. Thank you.
Hey, hey,
Yeah,
look,
I think imagination isn't just for artists, though. Daniel Pink wrote this great book, The Creative Mind, and he predicted that creativity would be the most important talent on a moving forward basis. And, we used to look to science fiction to tell us the future. Gene Roddenberry imagined a world of infinite diversity, but he also imagined the first GPS, the first laser, the first, telecommunications, mobile telecommunications device, the first interracial kiss on television. And
who was that?
say
uh,
again?
who was that? Was that
Uhura,
William?
Lieutenant Uhura, and Captain Kirk.
Okay, okay,
Um,
William.
And so I still have a crush on Lieutenant Uhura. If you,
It's fine.
yeah, right. If you are able to imagine a future, you can make it a reality. But if you can't imagine that future, well, then you can't turn it into reality. And so it isn't just for artists; it is also for bosses and leaders. In 1960, John Kennedy stood up in front of the country and said, by the end of this decade, we will send a man to Earth, to the moon, and bring him safely back to Earth. This was in 1960. They had no technology that could do that. They had no technology that even promised the inevitability of that. But in 1969, we sent a man to the moon, men, and brought them safely back to Earth. And so the imagination of the future is what helps predict it. And right now, everything is so apocalyptic that that's all we can envision as the future. I would also say, you say this is my calling, right? But in reality, what I do now didn't exist a decade ago. Writing a Substack newsletter, none of that phrase existed, right? LinkedIn was not what it is today. Zoom was not a way that we communicated, and here we're a podcast on it. So if you can't think beyond the edge of your own experience or beyond the limit of your own desk, well, then you're going to be trapped within both of those things. And so, every day I wake up stupid. Every day I try to read about the world we're in. I try to look for information to teach me things about where we are and where we're headed. But I stand up in front of people all over the world and I ask them, who here reads the earnings reports of their competitors and their clients and the world around them? And almost no one does. These are not complicated documents.
Right.
These are pretty easy to read, and they come out every 3 months, regularly scheduled, like clockwork. So you can look at this data and you can create a trajectory of where the world is going, but you have to be curious and you have to be imaginative in order to do that. And what's happened is we've rewarded failing or mediocrity. We have made our businesses in media entirely about the compensation of the C-suite or the value of the shares. And we then look at the quarterly earnings reports as ways to fool the market into giving us more value, as opposed to building real value in the enterprise. When you read Jeff Bezos's mission statement from the beginning of Amazon, he talked about building everything around the consumer. The user's need is the preeminent force in the marketplace. I don't love everything Jeff Bezos does, but he was absolutely right about that. When you look at the New York Times, which 12 years ago was a paper product predominantly delivered by diesel trucks, it's now one of the greatest gaming companies, probably the best podcasting platform. It's the best machine learning subscription lifestyle suite of services on the planet Earth. And it's not about 300 million subscribers, it's about 12 million subscribers. So when you look at those two examples, the imagination based on the reality that you're facing is what helped create a future that built both companies, built Amazon and then rebuilt the New York Times. It can be done, but you have to learn more than simply the math that they teach you in business school or the lessons that the Nepo babies and general managers of failing up continue to force down our throats.
What I hear that you're underscoring is two basic concepts: curiosity and learning. We are living in a time of massive transformation, economically, politically. Media is especially in the center of that. And those people who are not reading those reports go to you.
Right.
That's a good thing. You're
But,
providing.
but but then you're relying on my filter. I mean, I love it. It's my business. But then you're relying on a third party to distill the truth for you. And that's dangerous. We also live, unfortunately, in very incurious times. People are just listening to social media or strong men and they're letting those be their opinions as opposed to formulating their own. And it's why we are where we are. If you look at history, the biggest leaps that society has ever made is when everybody shared a general curiosity about where we were headed. And now everybody just wants to close their ears and their eyes and ignore what's happening.
You know, as I listen to you share your thoughts, it reminds me of a karate dojo, a place to learn empty hand thinking and empty hand kinesiology. So I started training karate with Okazaki Sensei in Philadelphia at 45th and Walnut early in my life. And the one thing that became clear is that you had to put the time, effort, and sweat in so that it would be applicable and transferable to the rest of your life. I'm not
Right.
talking about just a fight. I'm talking about fighting in life. When you get knocked down, you got to get back up. You got to be curious as to how to block that punch. So it's an interesting analogy. And I see you as a black belt in media finding ways through your curiosity and your objectives. Because it's one thing to have the curiosity, it's another thing to have a mission, vision, values, and objectives
Yeah,
to pursue.
and martial arts is not about fighting. It's
Oh,
about self-training. It's about self-discipline. It's about looking inward. And that's unfortunately not a discipline that a lot of people share right now.
I concur with you, man. And I think this is why you, as a media ambassador, as the cartographer, I don't know anybody else who's a cartographer in the media. I think
Either.
I'm the only one in the world. So, yeah, but my point is, it gives us the data we need. But you made a very important point, and it was you got to do it yourself. Don't depend on my filter because it might not be relevant or as relevant as it could be to folks. Listen, um, is there anything else you want to share about your agency, ESHAP, and what you're doing? Because I'm looking at everything. I'm studying you, bro.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I
tell me what
appreciate that.
the organization does.
Well, what's fascinating is we built an organization that does all of the same thing all of the time. It doesn't look the same to everybody, but whether a client asks us or not, we dig into the data every single day and we're looking for where the world is heading so that we can help people understand and navigate this chaos more easily for themselves. And so we do that, for the world at large. And what that's done is every time we put value out, value comes back to us. So we put value out for free daily to create a better world. And then the world sends opportunity our way. We've been fortunate enough to work with some really big clients on helping them understand themselves. Very often, when we work with a partner, they haven't really looked all that closely at their own data, at
Gotcha.
their own constituency. And so that's the first thing we do is we come in and we download all the data about our partners that they can provide us. We interview every major stakeholder at the company about what they are doing well and what they could do better, what
Right.
they should stop doing and what they should start doing. And then we work with them in a number of different ways. Often we'll write a report on the state of health of our partner and then a list of recommendations that they can enact on their own to go out and make the
Right.
transformation that's necessary. In other cases, we'll sit with a client. We did this for Channel 4, we did this with CBC. So we did all this research in advance. Then we met with both of those organizations and we agreed going in, me and the senior team, that we were going to come away with decisions, either to do something or to not do something, but we were going to come out of there with consensus.
Right.
And we worked really hard for a day or two to make decisions. And then they enacted those decisions on their own. In the case of this CBC and Channel 4, you can see both of the case study results on our podcast, The Media Odyssey, where they demonstrate the test and learn methodology and the way that they were able to help transform their organizations. So that's predominantly what we do. We also do a lot of thought leadership. So we'll do panels and convenings. We do a lot of public speaking. But in each case, it's all part of the same effort, which is looking around at the data that the world provides us to distill the needs, wants, desires, and trajectories of the audience that drive our business, and then provide actionable insights so that our partners can make better decisions.
I love it. I love it. As we prepare to travel, and you're traveling all the time, to Amsterdam, Netherlands, to participate in the IBC 2025 convention. Um, you're going to be the keynote speaker there. I have the good fortune of knowing you a little bit, man. Met you in New York at the NAB conference, but at the end of the day, can you just give us a little preview of
Sure.
what you're going to talk about there?
Yeah, sure. I tend to signal what I'm going to speak about in the weeks leading up to it on my newsletter, Media War and Peace. And I've written about this a little bit lately, but for the last year, I've been talking about how the creator economy is now the engine of all media and how big publishers should be transforming themselves into creators themselves. We did an interview with BBC Studios on our podcast that pretty much exemplifies this. And so, to better describe how this all works, I've offered a new terminology that isn't so tied to the Mr. Beasts and the Alex Coopers of the world, and I call it the affinity economy.
Hmm.
Right now, rather than the mainstream media economy or the creator economy, there is what I think the engine of all enterprise in media, which is the affinity economy. How consumers express their passions through time and money to the publishers and creators that they love the most. I've offered a new set of metrics, which I call the Key Passion Index around this. And so at IBC and a couple of other places this fall, I will be outlining the new rules for the affinity economy and digging into what I believe are the new metrics for media, which is the identification that consumers have with your brand and the amount of passion they demonstrate through reposts and reshares and comments and merch buying. And so I'll be outlining this all there, and hopefully I'm really hoping that we can change the way we measure because so much of media is still run by these vanity metrics that are meant just for earnings calls and not for reality. And what's going to happen is the companies that refuse to adjust to these new metrics, refuse to adjust to the new normal, they're unfortunately going to disappear. And we can look at Warner Brothers Discovery as a case study. We can look at Comcast as a case study. We can look at Paramount as a case study. We can look at ProSieben as a case study. And these companies, these monster companies of the media economy in the past, are on the precipice of irrelevance.
Wow.
And if they don't change their metrics, then they're going to disappear. And my fear is that public media, BBC, ZDF, ARD, France Television, that they're not necessarily transforming at the speed they need to. And unfortunately, the the death of a public media organ will be the death of democracy. And so my hope is that this is an alarming clarion call for them, and that they wake up and start listening more to their audiences. 70% of the world's population is now millennial and younger. If you don't understand that millennials, Gen Z, and Gen A don't just see the world differently, but live in a completely different world, then you will fail. And it's really crucial that we update everything about our business to cater to 70% of the world's population.
I'm curious about the word passion. And let me just go a little bit here.
Sure.
Because you want to help people, because you want them to have the right information, it's love. Rather than saying, let me go make a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with making money, but money follows service always. And so, why passion?
Because it is measurable.
Okay.
Because you can measure the passion of a consumer based on the number of times they comment, based on are they sharing your content with their friends and family? Are they putting their brand on their profile pic, on your brand on their profile pic? Are they wearing your brand across their chest? I mean, fandom is measurable. I am a dyed-in-the-wool Philadelphia Eagles fan, as you
Go
know.
Eagles!
Go Birds. And they're playing the hapless Cowboys this Thursday. And and look at Cowboys fans, as irrational and illogical as they are because their team hasn't won a Super Bowl in 3 decades,
Right.
they still wear those brands on their chest. That is a measurable that the Cowboys are either the first or second most valuable sports team on the planet Earth, and they haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years. That's not rational, but it is demonstrable. And so when you look at how the Philadelphia Eagles, frankly, have really leveled up on their social media presence in the last couple of years, due in large part to Jen Kavanaugh, who runs their marketing, they are now one of the most popular teams in the world on social media. That's a measurable outcome of passion. And so this idea that clicks or impressions or reach, which are vanity metrics that don't demonstrate real value, because a lot of reach and a lot of impressions are bots right now. That those metrics are no longer good predictors of the health of your company. But if somebody's buying your merchandise and wearing it on their face or their chest, that
Right.
is measurable and demonstrable outcomes. And so we need to move not from pure reach, but to pure love, pure passion. The New York Times is a great example. They built their entire organization around their most valuable users, and now they have 12 million devoted subscribers
Hmm.
that are very loyal to them for whatever reason on whatever day. And they are very, very valuable. What happened to BuzzFeed? Remember them? How about
That's
The Athletic? Remember them? They're now owned
exactly.
by the New York Times. So Mark Thompson and his the woman who followed him in the CEO's job,
Uh-huh.
Coppet, they have built an organization around the passions of their most loyal users. And as a result, they are doing well while almost all other publishing is failing.
You mentioned the Cowboys. I did an article on the VP of their media, and he phenomenally is imaginative. And I'll give you an example. In the article, it's maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I wrote him bringing in Stephen A. Smith, who's an Eagles fan. He does not like the Cowboys,
He
but
does
he
not.
brought him in because he wanted the audience members.
Hey,
So, I mean, they're doing some phenomenal things to brand themselves and to connect.
yeah, unfortunately, they're owned by a guy who doesn't know how to run a football team. But yes, their marketing is world class without question.
Excellent. Hey, man, look, as we come to a close, there's some important things that I just want to get your reflection on. And it's just a few words. We kind of started the show and we're ending the show with it. And the easy one, your calling.
My calling is to help lead change.
I love it. I love it. Simple, to the point, hard hitting, purpose.
That's a good one. I would say my purpose, frankly, is to create. I got into this business to create, and I'm ending my career as a creator. So.
I love it. And underscoring a lot of things that you've been talking about, but just put it in a sentence or two, your service to people.
It's a great question. I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I'm inspired by my grandfather and his willingness to help people without expectation of payback or reward. But that's not necessarily, where it came from on a daily basis. So I would say, again, I'll go back to what I said. I have found that the more value I put out into the world without expectation of return, the more value comes back to me. And so it is a little self-serving, but if you put out good energy, there's this great thing I saw a couple of days ago, and Buddhist teacher um, asks the students, you're carrying a cup of coffee and someone bumps into you and you spill the coffee. Why did you spill the coffee? And all the students give the wrong answer. And he says, you spilled the coffee because that's what you were carrying.
I love it.
So what you spill out when someone bumps into you is what you're carrying. If you're carrying resentment or regret or anger, that's what spills out. But if you're carrying generosity and hope and love, when someone bumps into you, that's what spills out. And so, as much as I can, I try to carry hopefulness and optimism and help and opportunity.
It's musical, brother. It really is. There's a sweet sound there. A good friend of mine who came along with Wynton Marsalis said to me, John, I play from my soul with the intention that it goes to the soul of those listening. Um, these are the kind of things I hear from you all the time, brother. Look, final thought. And this is one I don't know. It might take you a little time, but maybe not. What is your peak human potential with what you're doing, man? Have you conceived it? Is your imagination working on it? What do you see that would be the precipice of what you could achieve?
I aim for it every day. I don't think I've reached it. I'm getting old, but I have a lot of good years ahead of me, hopefully. And I think what this last chapter, this latest chapter of mine has shown is that you can never truly get to the peak. You can aim for it, you can hope to get there, but the peak is always still ahead of you. And if someone had told me 10 years ago that I would be known as the media cartographer with a Substack newsletter and that I would be traveling all over the world on other people's dime to speak the truth to power, I would have told them they were out of their goddamn minds. And so, I think this proves there are some things we're going to do in the year ahead that I can't reveal yet that I think are the next level up of our peak potential. But I hope to never reach it because the day you reach it, then what do you do?
I love it. I love it. Bringing it back to martial arts again, in the dojo, there was an expression we had beginning and ending. I'll just mention two pieces of it. Seek perfection of character. You'll never get it,
You
but you.
will never get it.
The other one is be faithful to the truth, which is what you're living. And sir, I got to tell you, um, humbly, I see things there in you and in your work that are inspiring to me. And I look
Same.
forward to seeing you soon, man.
Thanks. I'll
Thank
see
you.
you in Amsterdam at least, right?
Absolutely. Be well, my brother.
Go
I'll talk to
birds.
you soon. Go birds.
Take it easy.
You too, sir.